Under the ruthless Texas sun, where heat scorches the land and shadows are the only refuge, 5 newborn Mustang foals lay abandoned, each marked with cryptic symbols, left to die by those who saw them as flaws in a system built on perfection. But when Nathan Harmon, a haunted veteran from the elite Wars Guard unit, stumbled upon them on the edge of his family's fading ranch, something deeper than pity awoke in him. They weren't just orphans of the wild. They were survivors, just like him. With hands once trained for combat now trembling with compassion, Nathan knelt beside the fragile foals, not knowing this moment of mercy would unravel a dark secret buried beneath one of America's most powerful equestrian corporations, Blackwood. What he discovered would ignite a battle far greater than he ever fought in uniform. A genetic cleansing program designed to erase imperfection in silence. These foals were never meant to survive. As storms raged and legal threats circled, Nathan formed an unlikely alliance to expose the truth. Together, they stood against not just a corporation playing God, but a society too willing to look away when the voiceless are discarded for profit. This is their story of survival, of rebellion, and of how saving the weakest lives can sometimes save your own. But before we go deeper, drop in the comments where you're watching from. And if this story moved you, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming tomorrow. Nathan jogged back to his truck, heart pounding, and returned with an old tarp and a coil of rope. With deliberate care, he rigged a makeshift sling. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. "This is going to feel strange," he whispered to the foals, "but I'm trying to help." One by one, he lifted their fragile bodies onto the tarp. The black colt resisted weakly, but the others were simply too drained to fight. When he turned to the silver gray, it did something that stopped Nathan cold. It stepped onto the tarp by itself, as if it understood. Dragging that tarp across the jagged terrain was brutal. The sun blazed directly overhead. His old war injury screamed in protest, but he pushed through, stopping only to offer water to the foals. By the time he reached his truck, he was soaked in sweat, every muscle burning. With the last of his strength, he built a ramp from broken boards and carefully loaded each foal into the bed of the truck. He stroked the silver gray's trembling neck. "Hang on," he murmured. "Just hang on." The drive back was torture. Nathan kept glancing at the mirror, counting breaths, praying they'd survive. When he reached the old barn behind his father's house, it didn't look like much, but it was shelter. As he got out, he noticed a woman on his porch. Jeans, a blue shirt, ponytail. She raised her hand. "Mr. Harmon? I'm Dr. Torres. Your neighbor Frank sent me. Said you might need help with fencing." She froze when she saw the foals in the truck bed. "Mustangs," she said urgently, rushing forward. "What happened?" "Found them out by the east fence. Abandoned. No shade. No water." Professional instinct took over. "They're dehydrated. We need to get them out of this heat now." She moved fast. "Do you have shelter?" He pointed to the barn. "Not much, but it'll block the sun." "It'll have to do. I've got supplies in my truck." Together, they moved the foals inside. Dr. Torres worked with focus, setting up fluids, giving instructions, mixing electrolytes. "These foals are barely a week old," she said. "They shouldn't be alone." "There were no mares," Nathan replied. "Just these 5. Then she noticed the markings. "These aren't wild horse brands," she muttered, tracing the symbols. "Bed, Blackwood Equestrian Development." "What is that?" "A large breeding facility nearby. They claim to work with Mustangs for conservation, but I've heard things. Rumors." "What kind of rumors?" "That horses vanish, that they cull the ones who don't meet expectations." She looked at the foals, then back at Nathan. "This doesn't look good." The silver gray nudged Nathan's arm, seeking comfort. He stroked its neck without thinking. "Will they make it?" "We'll know within 24 hours, she said. "The dun and the black colt are on the edge. The rest, maybe." "I'm not ready for this," Nathan admitted. "I haven't worked with horses in years, let alone newborns." She looked at him squarely. "Well, right now, you're all they have, and they've got me too." As if in agreement, the silver gray lifted its head and stared at him, unblinking, unafraid. And in that moment, something shifted inside Nathan, something he hadn't felt since before the war. Purpose. "I'll need supplies," he said. "Feed, meds. I'll help. I'll come back tonight." "Thank you," Nathan said quietly, and meant it. After she left, he stayed in the barn. The silver gray finally lay down, the palomino curled beside it, the others resting as best they could. Only the dun was barely moving. Nathan sat on an old bucket watching over them, knowing this wasn't temporary. These foals needed him, and maybe in some unspoken way he needed them too. Outside the sun still burned, but inside that weathered barn, 5 fragile lives clung to hope, and for the first time in years, so did he. "You're safe now," Nathan whispered to the silver gray. "I promise." And this time, it was a promise he intended to keep. That night, Nathan dragged his father's old recliner into the barn, positioning it where he could watch over all 5 Mustangs. It was far from comfortable, but it gave him a place to stay close. Dr. Torres had returned just before sundown with everything they needed: milk replacer, antibiotics, electrolyte packs, and soft blankets. She'd shown Nathan how to bottle feed the weakest foals with calm, steady hands. Every 2 hours, she'd instructed. Even through the night, especially for the dun, he's right on the edge. Midnight came and the barn was silent, lit only by the soft glow of a battery lantern. Nathan checked his watch, then made his way to the foals. The silver gray lifted its head as soon as he approached, ears twitching. "Just me," he whispered. "Easy now." The dun colt still lay motionless, save for the faint lift of his ribcage. Nathan knelt beside him and gently coaxed the bottle into his mouth. The foal suckled weakly, eyes still closed. "Come on, buddy," Nathan whispered. "Just a little more." Behind him, the silver gray stood alert, watching, almost like it understood. The chestnut filly had perked up, already pawing playfully at the hay. The palomino rested peacefully, her breathing strong and steady. The black colt remained distant, but at least he was drinking now. Nathan had seen him sip from the pan. As dawn broke, the barn's shadow stretched long across the dusty ground. Nathan stepped outside to stretch his sore limbs. The horizon glowed a deep orange, and for the first time in months, he felt peace. No nightmares, no flashbacks, just 5 lives that needed him. A familiar sound rumbled down the dirt road, Dr. Torres's white pickup. She stepped out with a medical bag in one hand and a tray of coffee in the other. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing him a steaming cup. "How was the night?" she asked. 4 of them are stable," Nathan replied, but the dun, still barely hanging on. She followed him into the barn and did a full check. "Mystic and Flame are fighters," she said, pointing to the silver gray and chestnut. "Star and Jet are stabilizing, but the dun, we're doing everything we can." "I'm not giving up on him," Nathan said, jaw tight. "I didn't say you should," she replied gently. "But sometimes, it's out of our hands." They worked together to change bedding and clean the foal's markings. Up close, Nathan saw that the codes weren't brands. They were tattoos. "Bed X0572, Dr. T," Torres read aloud. "Blackwood Equestrian Development. That place you mentioned?" "Yeah," she said. "Huge operation, big money. They breed for elite performance and claim to preserve wild Mustangs. But I've heard whispers. Things that don't add up." "So why abandon these foals?" Nathan asked. "That's the question," she replied. "I have a contact. Let me make a call." While she stepped outside, Nathan stayed with the foals. Mystic followed his every move with those steady, knowing eyes. The chestnut filly, already full of energy, nipped at his sleeve. "You all need names," he said, rubbing Mystic's forehead. "Can't just keep calling you the silver one." He looked into Mystic's eyes, deep, focused, wise. "Mystic, that's you." The chestnut nudged him hard. "Your flame, all fire and attitude. He glanced at the black colt, who lingered in the shadows. Jet, quiet, fast, and dark, then to the Palomino resting calmly. Star, you've been shining through all this. Finally, he knelt beside the weakest foal, gently stroking its frail body. And you're Dune, strong enough to survive any storm. Dr. Torres returned, her face troubled. My contact couldn't say much, signed too many NDAs, but he said Blackwood is working on a breeding program, genetic targeting. Foals with the right look, the right performance traits. And the ones who don't fit? Nathan asked. She shook her head. He wouldn't say, but he told me to drop it, said asking questions was dangerous. That Blackwood doesn't play nice. Nathan looked around at the foals, at Mystic's unwavering stare, at Dune struggling for breath. His voice was steady. Well, I'm asking questions, he said, and someone's going to answer. Dr. Torres eyed him carefully. You don't plan on keeping them, do you? Once they recover, they should go to a proper rescue. I haven't thought that far, Nathan admitted. Right now, I just want them to live. But deep down, he already knew. Something had changed. These foals had cracked something open inside him, a sense of duty, a sense of healing, and maybe, for the first time in years, a reason to stay. Later that afternoon, an old blue pickup rolled up the dirt path, kicking up a trail of dust. Behind the wheel was Frank Wolf River, an old rancher with a lined face, sharp eyes, and a quiet strength that spoke of generations rooted in the land. He'd been Nathan's father's closest friend, though Nathan barely knew him. The war had kept him away, and by the time he made it home, the funeral was over and the ranch was just quiet. Word is you found some trouble, Frank said as he stepped down from the truck, eyeing the barn. Small town, Nathan replied, a dry smile forming. News travels fast. Frank followed him inside. The moment he laid eyes on the foals, his demeanor shifted. Mustangs, he murmured, then scowled at the tattoos. Blackwood's doing. You know about them? Frank nodded grimly. Everyone around here does. Blackwood's been buying up land, water, bloodlines, thinks he owns everything he touches. He knelt beside Mystic, the silver-gray colt, who looked up without fear. This one's got the old spirit, Frank said. Reminds me of the wild ones we used to see before they started rounding them up and caging them. Nathan explained what Dr. Torres suspected, that Blackwood was breeding for traits, not saving anything. Frank didn't even blink. Heard whispers. They take in Mustangs from BLM roundups, say it's conservation. Truth is, they're playing God, trying to build the perfect horse for wealthy clients. If a foal doesn't measure up, they discard it? Nathan asked, already knowing the answer. Frank's silence said it all. Nathan's fists clenched. He'd seen life devalued in war, but to find that same cold disregard here, in his own backyard, lit something inside him. He motioned to Dune. He's barely hanging on. Frank walked over, placed a weathered hand on the colt's neck, then reached into his pocket. Old remedy, he said, pulling out a pouch of dried herbs. My grandmother swore by it. Mix it with the milk. Give strength to the spirit. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. At this point, I'll try anything. They mixed the herbs and offered the bottle. For the first time in hours, Dune responded. Barely, but enough. No promises, Frank said, but sometimes the old ways still work. As the sun dropped lower, Frank made his way to the door. I'll bring better hay tomorrow. What you've got's too rough for babies. Nathan nodded. Thanks, Frank. The old man paused, hand on the doorframe. Your dad always said you had a gift with animals. Even as a kid, he'd be proud of this. The words hit harder than expected. Nathan had spent years trying not to think about that part of himself. I barely remember who that kid was. He's still in there, Frank said, then quietly left. As night fell again over the Harmon Ranch, the barn glowed softly under lantern light. Mystic had curled protectively near Dune. Flame and Star rested side by side, and even Jet had crept closer to the group, though he still kept his distance from Nathan. Everything was still until just past midnight. Headlights. Nathan jerked awake, instinctively reaching for the rifle resting by the door. The sleek black SUV that rolled up the drive was a stark contrast to Frank's dusty truck. It stopped in front of the house. The door opened. A woman stepped out. Tailored pantsuit, ice blonde hair pulled back tight. Everything about her screamed control. "Nathan Harmon," she called, her voice smooth and calculated. "I'm Audrey Collins, Director of Acquisitions at Blackwood Equestrian Development." Nathan didn't lower the rifle. He kept it down, but firm in his grip. "It's past midnight, Miss Collins. Not exactly neighborly hours." "This is urgent," she replied, stepping forward with a manufactured smile. "We understand you've come across 5 foals from our breeding program." "I found 5 foals left to die in 100-degree heat," Nathan corrected. "If they're yours, I've got questions." "There's been a misunderstanding," she said smoothly. "A transport accident. We've been searching for them. We're just here to collect them." Nathan's jaw clenched. "They were found miles from any road. No signs of their mothers. No transport. But they're all marked with your codes." Collins's smile vanished. "The details aren't important. What matters is, they're Blackwood property. I have documentation and am prepared to compensate you for your effort." "They're not going anywhere," Nathan said coldly. "They're in critical condition. One of them might not make it." Her expression hardened. "Mr. Harmon, I don't think you understand. These aren't wild Mustangs. They're part of a proprietary line." And that's when Nathan knew. This wasn't about missing animals. It was about covering something up. And he wasn't going to let that happen. "If they're part of a $1 million breeding program," Nathan said coldly, "then Blackwood should have taken better care of them." Collins didn't flinch. "This is a mistake," she warned, her voice sharp now. "Edward Blackwood doesn't appreciate interference." "And I don't appreciate nearly dead foals dumped on my land," Nathan replied. "If you want to talk, come back in daylight with a better story." They locked eyes. The only sound was a quiet nicker from inside the barn. Finally, Collins reached into her purse and handed over a card. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Harmon. Soon." She turned, heels crunching gravel, and vanished into the night as her SUV glided back down the drive. Nathan stood there long after the taillights disappeared. Her visit confirmed everything. These foals were valuable, and her story about a transport accident was pure fiction. Back inside the barn, Mystic stood watchful, ears perked as if he'd been listening. He met Nathan's eyes, calm and clear. "They'll be back," Nathan whispered, stroking the silver gray's neck. "But they're not taking you." Mystic leaned into his hand, almost as if he understood. For the first time since the war, Nathan felt something begin to shift inside, the cold, heavy knot in his chest starting to loosen. Morning came with a sense of unease. As Nathan moved through chores, mixing formula, giving meds, his mind kept circling back to Collins and her threat. Dune had made it through another night. Barely. But Frank's herbal remedy seemed to help. The colt's breaths were still shallow, but a bit stronger. Mystic never left his side. "Never seen anything like it," Dr. Torres said when she arrived. "A foal acting like a protector? That's rare. He's special." Nathan nodded, watching Mystic position himself between Dune and the door, ears alert. "They all are. Survivors." He then told her about Collins's visit. Her reaction was immediate. "A transport accident?" she scoffed. "That's a lie. These foals were dumped, deliberately." "Frank thinks they didn't make the cut," Nathan said. "That Blackwood culls the ones that don't fit the program." Dr. Torres's face darkened. "If they're wild-born and from federal lands, that's not just unethical, it's criminal." Just then, Jet, the most withdrawn of the group, approached Nathan for the first time. Cautiously. Curious. He sniffed at Nathan's hand, then backed away. "He's starting to trust you," Dr. Torres said softly. "They all are." Nathan felt an unexpected pride settle in his chest. After she left to check on other patients, Nathan decided to make a supply run. The foals were stable enough for a few hours, and he needed formula, bedding, and answers. Lonier Canyon was a small town slowly fading into memory. Once a bustling ranching hub, now it was just a few sun-worn buildings, a diner, a general store, a sheriff's office, and the old feed supplier. Nathan parked in front of Canyon Feed and Supply, its wood-paneled front smelling of grain and saddle soap. Inside, the owner, Dave Miller, a broad man with dusty jeans and an easy grin, greeted him. "Heard you're running a horse nursery now," Dave joked. "Word gets around," Nathan replied, loading up bedding and formula, especially with Blackwood's people snooping around yesterday. Nathan's head snapped up. "They were here?" Dave nodded. Asking if anyone bought newborn foal supplies, seemed real interested. I played dumb, never liked Blackwood's crew. They've been strangling this town for years. "I need to know what I'm up against," Nathan said. "What do you know about them?" Dave glanced around the empty store, then lowered his voice. "Officially? They're breeding top-tier horses for elite clients. Unofficially? They've been messing with Mustang genes for years, trying to create a super horse, one they can patent, sell, and control. They start with BLM adoptions," Nathan said, "then abandon the ones that don't fit." Dave's jaw tightened. "Wouldn't surprise me. Blackwood doesn't tolerate imperfection. If it doesn't serve his vision, it disappears." And that's when it all started to click. These 5 foals weren't just strays. They were evidence, proof of something Blackwood didn't want anyone to know. And now that Nathan had them, he'd painted a target on his back. But he wasn't backing down. Not this time. As Nathan paid for supplies, the bell above the feed store door chimed. Sheriff Anderson stepped in, uniform pressed, badge gleaming. He greeted the clerk, then turned to Nathan. "Mr. Harmon, mind if we talk?" Outside, under the hot Texas sun, Anderson didn't waste time. "Got a complaint this morning from Blackwood Equestrian. Says you're holding company property." 5 Mustang foals." Nathan didn't flinch. "I found 5 foals dumped in a ravine, barely alive. If they're Blackwood's, then they've got some explaining to do about animal cruelty." The sheriff listened quietly. "Collins says it was a transport accident. They've been looking for the foals." "No sign of a trailer, no sign of mares," Nathan shot back. "Just 5 tagged newborns left to die." "You sure?" "I've got a vet to back me up." "Doctor." "Torres has been treating them." Anderson nodded slowly. "Valerie's solid. That helps. Just be warned. Blackwood has power around here. They're talking theft charges." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Let them. I've got nothing to hide." Anderson started to leave, then paused. "How are the foals?" The unexpected concern surprised Nathan. 4 are hanging in there. 1's still on the edge. The sheriff nodded. "My daughter's got horses. Beautiful animals." Then he got in his cruiser and drove off. Back at the ranch, Nathan found Frank Wolf River on the porch, coffee thermos beside him. "Brought more herbs for the dun foal," Frank said, rising stiffly. Nathan sighed. "Sheriff came by. Blackwood's filing charges." Frank didn't even blink. "Not surprised. Blackwood hates losing control." In the barn, the foals were improving. Even Dune had stood up, shaky but standing. Mystic, the silver-gray colt, nickered as they entered. Frank paused beside him. "He's got the mark." Nathan frowned. "The tattoo?" "No," Frank said, pointing to a faint white star on Mystic's forehead. "In our stories, that's the spirit mark, a sign of purpose, a messenger between worlds." Nathan studied the foal. He didn't believe in myths, but there was something different about Mystic. As they fed the foals, Frank shared stories of the wild herds that once roamed free, of how men like Blackwood had tried to break that spirit for profit. "Question is," Frank said, watching Dune suckle, "are you ready to fight for them?" Before Nathan could answer, dust kicked up at the end of the drive. 3 black SUVs. Frank stood. "Looks like Blackwood isn't waiting on the courts." Collins stepped out first, flanked by men in suits and security personnel. "I told you we'd be in touch, Mr. Harmon," she called, holding paperwork. "We're here to reclaim Blackwood property." Nathan didn't move. "Those foals were abandoned. That's animal cruelty, and I've already reported it." She smiled thinly. "It's been cleared up, an unfortunate accident. Sheriff understands. Step aside. No, Nathan said. They're under medical care. They're not strong enough to move. A man stepped forward with a court order. Signed by Judge Reynolds. Nathan didn't take it. Signed without hearing my side? These foals are vital to our research, Collins said. You can cooperate or face charges. Just then, Frank stepped into the doorway. You're on private property. And those foals are evidence in an active cruelty investigation. Collins turned coldly. Still meddling, Mr. Wolf River? Cruelty concerns us all, Frank answered calmly. Then, screeching tires. Dr. Torres arrived, medical bag in hand. What's going on here? This doesn't concern you, Collins snapped. I'm their vet. It concerns me directly. They're not stable for transport. Collins waved her security team forward. Remove them, carefully. Nathan stepped in front. Touch those foals and you'll regret it. A security man squared off with him. Court order's clear. And I've got 5 witnesses, Nathan growled, including a vet who documented their condition. Dr. Torres pulled out her phone. Photos, reports already sent to the state board. Move those foals now and you're adding endangerment charges to the list. Collins faltered for just a moment, but the fury in her eyes said it all. You don't know what you're interfering with, she hissed. Those foals are worth millions. Is that why you left them to die? Nathan replied. Frank stepped forward. We know about the culling. It's not the first time, is it? After a tense standoff, Collins backed down. This isn't over. As she and her team left, Nathan turned to Mystic, who stood at the stall, ears forward, calm and steady. They'll be back, Nathan said. But so will we. This absolutely involves me, Dr. Torres snapped. These foals are under my care. They're not strong enough to be moved. But Collins had already signaled her team. Remove them, gently. As the security crew advanced toward the barn, Nathan stepped into their path. Touch those foals, he growled, and you'll regret it. The lead guard, built like a Marine, squared off. Don't make this hard, buddy. We've got a court order. And I've got 5 witnesses to animal abandonment, Nathan fired back, including a licensed vet who documented their condition. Dr. Torres held up her phone. Photos, reports, they're already with the state board and animal welfare officials. Move them now, and you're adding criminal endangerment to the list. For the first time, Collins's confident mask cracked. You don't understand what you're interfering with. These animals are part of a multi-million-dollar research program. Is that why you left them to die? Nathan shot back. Because they didn't meet your standards? A flicker of something, maybe guilt, maybe rage, passed through her eyes. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. There was a transport accident. There was no accident, Frank cut in from the barn. They were culled, left to die. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last if no one stops you. Collins pulled her legal team aside, voices low. Then she turned back, eyes like ice. This isn't over, Mr. Harmon. Those foals belong to Blackwood. We'll be back with more authority. And I'll be ready, Nathan replied, with everything I've got. As the convoy pulled away, Dr. Torres exhaled shakily. That was way too close. But they'll return, and next time with more legal firepower. Judge Reynolds is in Blackwood's pocket. Then we move fast, Nathan said. We find the truth. We prove what Blackwood is doing. Inside the barn, the foals huddled together, Mystic standing like a sentinel in front of them. As Nathan approached, the silver-gray colt met his eyes with uncanny awareness. We need to learn more about these markings, Nathan said, brushing his fingers over Mystic's coded tattoo. Why were these 5 chosen for disposal? Frank examined Dune, the dun colt who had taken the standoff hard. In the old days, he said, ranchers culled animals that didn't match the traits they wanted. But today's breeders use genetics, embryo selection. They don't wait until birth, unless they're looking for something that only shows up after. Behavioral traits, Dr. Torres added thoughtfully. Some things you just can't test for until they're born. As they spoke, Flame nudged Nathan, demanding attention, full of fiery spirit. Star brushed against his arm, sweet and gentle. Jet lingered nearby, cautious but curious. And Dune, he was still weak, but alert, fighting. They all have distinct personalities, Nathan observed. Even now. Temperament's the hardest thing to breed for, Frank nodded. You can engineer size, color, speed, but heart, spirit, that comes from somewhere else. Dr. Torres checked her watch. I'll start calling state contacts. We need official eyes on this before Blackwood moves again. In the meantime, document everything. Every bottle fed, every med, every heartbeat. Build the case. After she left, Nathan and Frank kept working. The confrontation had drained them, but also sharpened their purpose. These foals weren't just victims anymore. They were the center of a fight that reached far beyond ownership. As the sky burned orange with sunset, Nathan sat in the barn doorway. Mystic stood beside him, his small body warm and steady. "What makes you so special?" Nathan whispered, stroking his coat. "What is it they're so afraid of?" Mystic turned to him, eyes deep, intelligent, unshaken, and in that moment, Nathan understood. These foals weren't just something he'd stumbled upon. They were his purpose. Frank joined him, lowering onto an overturned bucket with a soft grunt. "Hard to believe people can be so cruel," Nathan muttered. Frank nodded. "And yet, we're also capable of great beauty. Question is, which one do we serve?" Above them, the stars began to appear, silent and steady in the vast Texas sky. Nathan Harmon never expected to be at the center of a national scandal when he rescued 5 abandoned Mustang foals from a ravine. But when the sheriff showed up with questions, it became clear. These weren't just any foals. They belonged to Blackwood Equestrian, a powerful company accused of animal cruelty and genetic manipulation. As Nathan and veterinarian Dr. Torres uncovered the truth, they learned Blackwood had been secretly breeding Mustangs, trying to create wild-looking horses that could be controlled, eliminating any traits they considered undesirable. The 5 foals Nathan saved had been discarded for showing too much independence, what insiders called the resistance trait. Despite threats, legal pressure, and even a federal seizure order, Nathan stood firm. With the help of a whistleblower, Maria Redstone, and unexpected community support, the truth came to light. Federal agents raided Blackwood's facility, exposing years of illegal breeding and abandonment. A court ruled in Nathan's favor, granting him ownership of the foals and invalidating Blackwood's patents. Months later, Harmon Ranch was reborn as the Mustang Sanctuary. Mystic, the silver-gray leader of the herd, became a symbol of wild resilience. The foals weren't just survivors. They sparked a movement to protect the untamed spirit of America's Mustangs. Nathan, once a broken soldier, had found healing in protecting what others tried to destroy. In saving the Mustang 5, he discovered a deeper purpose and gave a voice to the wild.